Welcome back to the Cinema Club podcast. I am back with Paige with our coverage of The Last of Us season 2, and we are diving into episode 2 today. And wow, what an episode, Paige.
I am honestly so stoked to dive into this episode. I was waiting for it for the longest time. I'm excited to see what your thoughts are on it because I have a few in my head that I would like to discuss.
Yeah, Paige and I texted a little bit about the episode before we hopped on today. It was more like Paige texting me and being like, damn. And I was like, oh no, they did do it. Because last week in the events covered in episode 1, I was like, wow, they really are teeing things up to potentially jump into Joel's death in this next episode, really. If they're going chronologically based on what occurs in the video game. And then, this is my bad, but for the last year, I've been like, there's no way they're going to split the second game into at least 2 seasons, if not 3, potentially, and then just kill off Joel in the second episode of the second season. I think it actually makes perfect sense looking back on it because, as in the second game, that event occurs very early, very suddenly, and then that just is the launching pad for Ellie's story.
Yeah, I know when we were discussing season 1, we were like, how are they going to do season 2? They split it up into multiple seasons. I did not know they were going to do it like one of the first episodes. Well, like you said, I think it was the most reasonable, logical thing to do for the show. Because Ellie and Abby's story is so complicated that I'm sure in all of the episodes are going to go really deep and spread it out a little bit, which I'm really excited to see what they put into it, even if it's not part of the game.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too. This event does occur very suddenly, very quickly in the very beginning of the game, as it does in season 2. And then there's a ton of Ellie's story, a ton of Abby's story left to unpack. And even in the second game, I thought there's really 3 main story points that are covered in the game that had me wondering, I guess, if they would potentially expand to a 4th season to cover about the last 15 to 20% of the second game, just because they could flesh that out a little bit more if they really wanted to. But now that Joel's gone, I think they might just stick with season 2 and then officially greenlit now a season 3 and be able to pretty comfortably cover the full events in game 2.
Yeah, they're moving on pretty quickly and they're staying true to the timeline to the game. Like in the game was the first, 20 minutes of play. I do agree that they're probably going to stick with just 3 seasons. I hope they do 4 seasons, but I don't really know what they would do. Would they split it between Ellie, Abby, and like the Sephirites?
I'm really excited we're getting to see that group this season. But yeah, there's a whole part of the game that kind of takes place toward the end where it's very fast tracked, I felt, in the game. In this one, it was interesting because we got introduced to Abby in the show a little bit before our characters do. And that wasn't the case in the game.
At least in the show, you have a background on her.
On the
Otherwise, it would have been completely confusing to the audience.
Yeah. And as soon as I saw the title of this week's episode, Through the Valley, I was like, oh, okay. He's not making it past episode 2.
No, I knew right away. I was like, all right, here we go. I'm sitting there on my couch waiting for it to happen again.
Which, at least for me, it is like emotionally traumatizing. And ever since we got the announcement that they were making this into a television show, I've been like, man, I have to relive this all in live action now.
I was like, I hope they do it well and I hope they do it justice because the game definitely had some very gruesome, gory, brutal moments. And I think they pulled that off pretty spot on.
Yeah, and I guess overall too, I thought it was one of the best hours of television I've ever seen.
There's not really any slow moments. Things are happening on the go all the time. Even from when Tommy was speaking to his village of people to the weed store moment with Jesse and Ellie, which I thought was most comical in there. How do you like the fact that they changed who Joel went on scout with?
Yeah, I had seen some images that had come out ahead of this week's episode, and it looked like it was Dina out there with Joel. So they're switching some stuff up in the game. It is Joel and Tommy who are scouting together, and then it is Ellie and Dina who are scouting together.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I thought it worked really well. Joel is, I don't want to say replacing. I know Ellie and him were having some difficult times.
Mm-hmm.
Just bringing along because they're so close. It was like another male figure, young woman figure. I don't know if that's why they did that. But I also think that they wanted Tommy to protect Jackson with the horde that was coming through, which I thought was a really nice switch on who they swapped out, who's with who. I liked the whole protecting Jacksonville. It was intense and it was actually pretty good.
Yeah, the whole episode was super intense because you're switching between all these different characters that, even though you've only gotten one episode with Dina and one episode with Jesse, we still really care about these characters. And yeah, the creative decision to spotlight Tommy, it was nice to switch back and forth between the various storms occurring with all of our different characters. And yeah, this episode was just intense the whole time. I had really loved the whole thought process when it came to the infected hibernating almost
Yeah,
underneath the snow.
that was intense. I've never seen a zombie horror movie decide to have them be, like what you said, hibernating underneath a bunch of dead bodies.
And then Abby's like, all right, makes a decision that she's going to slide down this embankment to try and get down there. I think in the game does something semi-similar, or she just stumbled upon a bunch of dead bodies. I think that may have inspired them with the initial introduction of the infected here. I really loved how they just paired that then with, oh shit, like she's walking and they're all moving very slowly. And that's just where everything from there is nonstop.
And when I was watching, I was curious on where they all came from. How did they get that many in that valley hibernating? Not that it has anything to do with the story. I was just wondering, where did these thousands of infected come from? That
Right.
woke up.
I guess like my thought process had been in the TV version, the infected, they're all connected, right? They're all able to sense what's going on, more of a hive mind type of thing going on. So my thought process had been like, oh, for a survival aspect, it would make sense as a hive mind to try and gather in very large groups in a colder setting if they were going to be hibernating. And then, of course, we do see as Abby is running that we have multiple large groups of infected all coming together as well, then to descend upon Jackson. But that was kind of like what I had thought to answer
Yeah,
your question.
that makes total sense. What you just said pretty much answered my question too. Like you said, this is a big hive. They just travel together.
Or at least if they're not always traveling together, they're all coming together in this cold winter storm to try and survive with one another. Jackson, like that was something that was not in the games at all. In the games, there's mention of Jackson needing to be defended against the infected or against raiders, but we never actually see something like this especially on the scale.
It's early game. We automatically just hate Abby because she kills Joel. Now we need to hate her some more. She's pretty much the reason that Jackson was downfall. She's the reason that Joel dies. She's the reason that Jackson gets this breach. So it's just another like one-upping that we all decide to hate her at once.
It's true because obviously we have the cordyceps that are triggered or whatever by being found in the piping within Jackson. But Abby's the one that's waking them all up so that they're alert.
I'm glad that we really had a lot of TV or screen time for the bloater that we got to hint at from the first season. You just kind of see it when they're in the street when they're shooting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad they had a 1v1 with the big dude.
Yeah,
Well, that was like a video game scene. Like, hey, they breach, now go fight him. You're like, okay.
Because in the game you are, as Tommy was a lot of times in this episode, running away and utilize all your resources to try and take down this unstoppable force. And yeah, I really did love that like the flamethrower wasn't tacking it, but eventually burned its way or whatever into its living organism's brain or whatever.
Yeah, I was assuming that you would have killed him some other way somehow, because I know when we have to try to kill him, we have to use multiple different things.
Totally.
But
and then thinking of Jackson, I guess staying on that, like I really loved just that whole sequence. It definitely reminded me of some Game of Thrones scene. It reminded me of some Helm's Deep in Lord of the Rings. And I really loved that they had the whole aspect of the trained dogs specifically target and take out infected. I thought that was really cool.
I didn't even know they had dog. When she went and took them out of their kennel, I was like, poor puppies. They're all going to just die. But it seemed to be a good resource that they use.
It definitely seemed like it was a turning point in that conflict. Because it wasn't looking too good there for Jackson for a minute. Which I guess too, kind of like backing way up, there's so many times where the television show heavily takes inspiration from the game. And I really enjoyed that they kept in the whole breakfast sandwich scene where Ellie is picking up her bigot sandwiches, as she calls them in the game.
It gave you one last comical Ellie being sassy teenager before she goes and endeavors what she's about to see.
Totally. And I just realized I didn't really answer your question fully that you asked me earlier about swapping various characters that were on patrol with one another. There is a scene and a sequence of events that takes place between Dina and Ellie while they're on patrol in the game that I definitely right away realized we weren't going to get in this episode, at least, which I was a little bit bummed about. I have a pretty strong feeling that they're hopefully going to incorporate at least a heavily inspired version of that event sometime this season between Ellie and Dina, just because I thought it was a really good moment that I would like to see translated into the live action version of this story. That was kind of one negative takeaway I had about switching out the patrol partners.
Yeah, I can see how that would take away just a little bit of the connection of them and everything. I'm glad they did what they did, but I'm also curious on why they did it.
What the creative reason was here. Because as far as like the dialogue goes between like Jesse and Ellie here in the TV show, that mirrors a lot of the dialogue that is occurring in the game between Dina and Jesse on patrol.
I wonder if they wanted to give Jesse more screen time. Because he's a good character, and you don't see a lot of him in the game. You do, but you don't. No. I wonder if they just character development, like everybody.
That's a great creative decision. If that is the case, otherwise it would have been Jesse hanging out in Jackson, fighting off some infected. More character development for sure was showcased here. That's a great point, Paige.
We talk about the beginning. Do you want to just go right into?
Yeah, let's jump
That's
into the main event for sure. I guess leading up to the main event, we have Abby running from this horde, and I really loved that they kept the scene where that fence is collapsing and she's crawling.
yeah. I thought that was very intense. Like spot on to the video game. Right when I saw that happening, I'm like, yes, he's definitely going to go out pretty soon.
Yeah, it's insanely intense in the game, but I thought they had really nice detailed touches in the live action that really kicked it up. Like you had the whole detail of the one infected, his hand is coming through the wire and everything because he's got 15 infected, squishing him on the other side to try and get through to Abby.
I remember watching that. I was like, oh, that's really gross.
I did love that shot where we just see the arm and hand of somebody reaching out to Abby from Abby's perspective. I love that shot.
And as a viewer who has never played the game, who's that? But yeah, it was a
Abby's like,
really.
oh, I don't know who the hell this is. You're saving me.
I think that whole scene of the fence falling over, her crawling through, was a really good representation of her weakness. Because going forth, you're going to just see her being rough and tough. And that was like a weak point in her life, crawling through there and then being saved by the one person that she was looking for.
No, very true. It's a point in time where Abby is incredibly vulnerable. Like I said, she's traveled across the US to find this man that ends up saving her in this moment. Obviously, on the TV show, you also have the factor of Jackson being attacked. All that combined also with the huge blizzard was like, again, the perfect storm for the situations that were occurring.
Yeah, it's a very good word. Putting that. I did like how they introduced Joel to the friends. They were like being all like, be nice, take care of him. By the way, this is Joel. And then just change of attitudes shifted.
Which Joel picks up on pretty quickly. I really liked the change that instead of in the game, it's in a basement or something. It's very dark in there. Instead, here we have this beautiful lodge that's overlooking this snowstorm. So it's a lot of natural light going on. So you can really see what's happening in detail.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the few differences that I noticed in that scene. There were multiple little tiny things that I saw, but for show purposes, I understand. But I think they also did the big window so we could glimpse at Jackson being the fire and we could see the town.
And then I think we also get like a little glimpse of Ellie riding up on horseback through the window as well.
Yep.
So there were definitely aspects that were adding to the escalation of emotions here. What did you think about how they went about Joel's death here in live action?
I think that they captured the emotion of him dying. In the game, Abby just is brutal with him. It doesn't really talk to him. He just annihilates him with a golf club just repeatedly. But in the show, they had him really hurt, pretty much dying, and she was explaining the story to him, telling him why she's doing this. In the game, you don't get that. Joel dies and has no idea why. But in the show, it shows us that Abby's really hurt and this is why she's doing it. It is revenge. But when they showed Joel laying down and his face was swollen and just bloody. It was a really bad flashback of the first time that we witnessed it in the game. I think Pedro did a really good job, especially when Ellie witnessed it. She got hit in the stomach and fell down, and she's just screaming his name repeatedly. And then those two right then and there, when she kept saying, "Get up," he kind of got up and she got super excited. It hurt my heart a little bit, even though I knew it was going to happen. I'm actually surprised that they didn't murder him with the golf club more. I know that the golf club broke, and that's how she used it. It was a stabbing.
Right.
Really different from when the game. I don't know if they wanted to not do more of a brutal death or just wanted to end it right there. But I personally think they did a fantastic job showing exactly what we wanted to see. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but it made you feel a certain way.
No, I agree with everything you just said. For you and I, it was something that we've been wondering about for a few years. Are they going to nail this when it comes to so many different aspects, but mostly the emotional aspect? And I think they definitely did. It was obviously shocking as an audience member. And even myself watching the episode, I'm like, man, are they really going to do it? I was still in denial, I think, from even just a writing standpoint. It is such an impactful decision. We're going to kill off the main character of season one of the two main characters of season two had so far.
Well, I guess if you think about it, the first game was based off of you're playing Joel, and now we get to play Ellie. It makes sense in my head that we're now going to play her because this is all we, as us gamers, know is this is the next step. We're in
Right.
Ellie's shoes now. Now we have to take revenge.
Right. It's Ellie's journey moving forward. It's Ellie's story that we're going to experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think watching slash experiencing the events of Joel's death and seeing that impact on Ellie, that's like a very bitter medicine as it's going down, but something very transformative that we saw a glimpse of happens to Ellie after this event. And as you're saying, the rest of the show is now about this transformative event and its impact on Ellie, our main character. And yeah, like you said, there's so many moments that really supercharge the emotions and the brutality of Joel's death. Like seeing Joel try to lift his head, his body from the ground as he's hearing Ellie's voice telling him to get up. It's brutal. It's beautiful in some ways too.
Now he knows that she was always there. She tried. The last person that he pretty much saw before he died. That was always an uplifting moment because I know that they had their issues before the scene happened.
Yeah, but I also feel for Joel though too, not just because of what he's experiencing, but his thought process, I'm sure, before he's brutally murdered, is that Ellie's going to die too. And that he has once again failed to protect the daughter figure in his life, which is just really sad to think about. Like you were kind of mentioning too, Abby is definitely setting the scene a lot for Joel and for us as viewers in the scene leading up to Joel being murdered. Even I was watching it and I was like, man, she's really setting the scene here, which is, like you said, I think is good in a lot of ways. But I really loved that Abby's like getting the golf club out and she's like talking to Joe. She's like, it's funny. I've waited so long. And Joel's just like, shut the fuck up and do it already.
That was definitely a good line. One of Joel's last lines that you could say that just was his personality.
Totally.
And I know that everyone who played the game is watching the show probably hates Abby.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to get hate for this, but I really do like her character. Even in the game, I enjoyed her character because think about it, those two girls are the exact same. They're just fighting for what they know and fighting for revenge. And the fact that Kieran Dever is playing her kind of makes me like her a little more because I've liked everything that she's been in.
Yeah.
She's a very good actress. And I'm excited to see where it takes Abby's character. I'm also curious if this is my thought. Season 2 would be like Ellie's journey, and season 3 would be Abby's journey. Then maybe at the end, mix, which is what they do in the game, because their backgrounds and their journeys are just so long. Then how they're going to, I don't know, display it.
It's been something that I've been very curious about for quite some time as well. How are they going to catch us up on Abby's journey, which I think they're doing a nice job of already doing that here, because we already have at least the bare bone basics. But like you said, there's more background on Abby that we'll hopefully get to see more of this season.
Yeah.
But to your main point there too, the story, it's about grief, love, vengeance, all layered in like 60 minutes of some of the best TV I've seen, at least in quite a few years. And I don't think general TV audience members are maybe ready for where we're headed. But ready or not, like, we're in it now.
Yeah. And the second episode of season 2 is the highest viewer watch HBO show like ever. Is
Wow, okay.
what I've read. I'm like, okay, it's getting up there. Just top Game of Thrones, apparently.
Did not know that. That's great.
But on a different note, anything Pedro Pascal's in, I feel like he's just gonna die. We're just gonna have to cope with that. Well, he does it well. I'll put it that way.
He does die well on screen. Game of Thrones was pretty brutal in the way he went out there as well. But yeah, he is involved in quite a few projects, even just coming out this year. Like he's in The Materialist, he's in what's called Eddington, and then of course he's Mr. Fantastic in Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
So what a for Pedro Pascal, honestly.
No kidding. He's definitely not saying he wasn't famous before this, but once he became Joel, I think his career took off a little more. He's a good actor. I love him in whatever he does. Well, good for him.
He seems like a genuinely good person, just in general too.
Yeah, I follow him on Instagram.
Okay.
And the first posted episode 2 was a picture of him and Abby to try to not have this poor woman get death threats like the character of the game. People are rude, but all I have to say is that it was a very good episode, and I still think about it. I kind of want to rewatch it just to see if I missed anything.
I've been meaning to rewatch it this week as well. I haven't got a chance to yet. The event of Joel's death, like as you were saying, like he died knowing that Ellie still really loved him. You get that transformative moment where Ellie goes from begging for Joel's life to vowing vengeance on Abby and her crew. It's a very chilling but crucial turning point for her character. And it kind of a reflection too. I know last week we talked a little bit about how there were people that I was talking to, and you yourself shared that this version of Ellie wasn't really working for you in some ways, at least. Especially like looking back now on episode 1, it's very intentionally written in that manner so that moving forward, we really do see even more of a dramatic change, I believe.
Like really big character development arc. Or
Were you connecting more with this version of Ellie in this episode than in the first?
I felt she was definitely more Ellie-esque, would say, in this episode, especially with the sandwich scene and hanging out with Jesse,
Sure.
just doing that weird shit she always does. It definitely grew on me a little bit, but you have a point. That last episode is probably for us to think that she was just a rotten teenager who doesn't give a shit about anything, which was also her acting in that episode. But her acting in episode 2 was a lot better for me. I felt like there was a small little character shift in this episode for her, anyways, because she's starting to realize she does miss Joel. She's reflecting on what she has done. Yeah, I'm still waiting for when I hit the top where she would be true Ellie Prime the game for season 2. She's getting there. She did a phenomenal job at that part where she's screaming out his name. I felt it within that she was missing him, cared for him, loved him, is worried that he's going to die in front of her. But then the creators decided to pull out the actual voice of Ellie and sing the song. And I'm like, great, that's cool. That really hits the heartstrings for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was like a final blow emotionally hearing the haunting track of Through the Valley covered by Ashley Johnson, who originally voiced Ellie in the video games. Again, I think it's really blending the video game version with the television version. It's very intentional from an emotional standpoint. Even like the shot for shots that we've gotten, like it's not just fan service. They definitely are deepening the emotional aspects for players and viewers alike, I would say.
Yeah, they're making it enjoyable for the gamers that love the game and the people that have never seen it for the first time. For them, they're just hearing a song that has a lot of meaning to it.
Even that cover in the game is something that is very special as well. So that was really cool that they brought that into this episode, which
Yeah.
speaking to on the very last shots in this episode, like you mentioned, Ellie is brutally hurt after getting kicked pretty severely there. She sees Joel being killed. And then throughout this whole sequence of Joel's death, all of the shots, for the most part, are very ground level from Ellie's perspective, a lot of times too. And then once Joel is gone and Abby and her crew are gone, we have really a great shot of, I think it's like a crane overhead shot of Ellie crawling toward Joel, trying to move Joel and holding Joel with that final connection there. And I think that can be interpreted in different ways. It can be interpreted in a way where it's like she just wants to be with Joel because he's gone. But I think too, at least how I was viewing it, is that Ellie is severely hurt here, and maybe she thinks she's not going to make it either, and she wants to die with Joel in that moment.
I was gonna say I didn't think about those shots at all while you were explaining them. I think I was just too focused on the story going on. But now that you say that, I do notice that they have very ground level close up shots of going back and forth between the both of them.
Especially as things are escalating more toward Joel being taken out there. Another detail that I really appreciated at the end of the episode was Ellie looking back at Joel's body being dragged away.
Yeah.
It's the last image that Ellie has, at least in this episode, but it's also the last image that we have.
Have the present Joel.
Right.
Hoping we get some flashbacks.
I think we definitely will be seeing more of Papi Pedro in season 2. Through flashbacks, yes, because we have the whole sequence of events. I'm guessing they'll show with the counselor's husband that Joel took out, which again is mentioned here in the second episode. Jesse's like, "Oh yeah, what a shame. Joel had to take him out." Ellie. So it definitely is sparking my interest to see what happened there.
Yeah, when you say that, I'm curious too, because the way that I thought about it was, I thought he was infected or something and he had to take him out. But
right.
yeah, Ellie's reaction to that comment, she was like, not necessarily what happened.
She was hesitant. Makes me
Yeah.
think that maybe Joel and Ellie took him out for a different reason, and they told everybody that he was infected. I don't know, but I'm
I
very
think you're
interested to see
louder there.
what happened.
Definitely onto something. Because that was like a foreshadowing moment for the rest of the season. The second
So,
he brought him up too.
right, because we also see Jesse talking about how this character was connected with the wolves, um, which obviously Ellie and Joel have that specific connection with that group as well. I'm sure we'll get a flashback in the next few episodes about that. And then this events that took place between the ending of episode 1 and the beginning of episode 2 that Ellie briefly references when she's going to get breakfast. I am very curious to know what you think about this. In the game, they show us that sequence, and then that's the end of the game. So I don't know if they're going to show us that right away or if they're going to save that for next season.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, maybe that was the scene, but you have a good point too. Like it could happen. I'm always so shocked on how these writers do the adaptation.
That's why I'm not sure. I believe they're going to showcase to us as an audience of the television series the conversation that Ellie and Joel did have off screen as of right now between the ending of the night that closes on episode 1 and the morning of episode 2. But I just don't know when and how they're going to show it to us because it is a scene that we see as players to close out the end of the game. But it's such a beautiful and very important scene that I just really want to see in live action this season, if at all possible.
If they're going chronological through the game,
Mm-hmm.
the show, I feel like they're probably going to stay true to that because they haven't really missed any of it yet. Because we're getting a good ending to season 2. Think about it. It could still be a flashback.
Yeah, are we going to have to wait a few years until we see this?
Probably they make us wait forever for these things.
Yeah. To your really great point, like it would be a great way to close out the second season of a television show.
Just depending on how the show plays out. I'm just waiting each week for Sunday nights to see what happens.
Totally. And my parents really like the show, haven't played the games and weren't familiar with how the story goes. So I've been kind of just sitting on a major spoiler for a few years. And it was very shocking for them. And my mom was super upset about it, honestly.
I mean, that's good that she was upset.
Yeah. And I was like, that's a testament to how well the scene was portrayed. Caitlin Dever, Abby, began filming just 3 days after her mother's funeral. So her mom had passed away 2 to 3 weeks previously. This was her first day on set when they decided to do Joel's death.
I know I read that somewhere, but dedication. And you could tell that she was going through some things too when she was filming this.
Yeah, that grief was real in a lot of ways. I think that really inspired her performance. And then the character of Mel, you see a scene of her crying a little bit in the corner. And that was not scripted. That was an actual emotional hit that the actor took in the filming of the episode. It was so intense, and the showrunners decided to keep that rare unscripted moment that makes the whole scene even more emotionally complex.
And I Didn't even think about that because that is true to her character too. Her character is a very intellectual, soft spoken person throughout the game and the show. So I like that she cried accidentally or on purpose.
Yeah, it was very emotional for me, and I knew it was coming. There was just one other thing I wanted to touch on. It was a quote from Craig Mazin talking about the themes of symbolism in The Last of Us. We talked about this too in season 1 coverage, love, loss, and what's left behind. Craig, I think he put it perfectly. He said, part of what makes The Last of Us relevant to those of us who aren't living in a fungal apocalypse is that it portrays the shattering nature of loss. It talks about what is left behind when somebody is torn away from you.
Wow. Very deep quote. I know that the writers, the creators of the show, the game, really put a lot of thought and care and creativity into these. And I'm so happy that the writers get to be a part of making the show, that it stays true to it and everything.
Absolutely agree. And this episode did such a good job, I think, of showing that it's not just centered on death, but showing grief, legacy, memory, every like lingering shot, all the unsaid
Mhm.
words between characters. They all carry so much weight about what could have been, especially between Ellie and Joel, in whatever kind of time that their relationship hasn't been very healthy. Everyone did a fantastic job, but I think Bella Ramsey did a really nice job, in my opinion, of showcasing that transition in Ellie from her panic, rage, and resolve, which all played out in such a great raw intensity that it's almost hard to watch as a viewer of the television show.
Yeah. Yeah. I pretty much agree with most of the things that you said. It's about the same thing that I would have said. This is definitely one of, I don't want to say it's a favorite episode of mine because it's not, but it is at the same time. It's a confusing feeling for it. Yeah.
I
I'm
agree.
just excited to see where it goes. It's a good game. It's a good series.
Amazing story in whatever medium it's being consumed in. And yeah, I'm very excited to get to see its immediate impact on Ellie here in the next episode. And also, I'm sure we'll get to see Tommy's reaction.
They're just creating like a brand new storyline to keep us intertwined with the roller coaster of apocalypse-ness, however you want to say that.
Yeah, no, it's got me hooked. I would agree with you. As far as just a quality episode of television, like episode 3 of season 1, I will say has to be one of my favorite episodes of television ever, period.
Mhm.
It's something that I get emotional about even just thinking about it.
It was Bill and Frank's scene, right? Yeah.
Yes, I just thought it was so beautifully and wonderfully made with the whole story that they had.
It wasn't really
Um,
in the game, but they made me
mhm.
feel like it was because it was so good that I actually got the quote from Frank Bill about the strawberries. I got a text about
Mm.
these. I liked it so much.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
I'm just gonna
awesome.
say right now, it's the strawberry ones, and it said, "I
Oh,
was never afraid before you showed up."
oh my gosh, I love that.
it
I love that so much.
was
Oh,
it was a good scene.
now I'm all emotional about that whole storyline. Last of Us. But besides episode 3 of season 1, like this is definitely the standout episode just in regards to such a highly well done piece of entertainment that really so much going on, but it all came together in such a great especially emotional way. I'm just wondering how they're going to keep up the high quality that they're giving us moving forward. But I'm very excited to uh, be venturing into how Ellie is going to react next week.
They keep one-upping themselves. They're just going to have to keep one-upping them each episode. But Sunday is going to be an emotional ride. Not for any death purposes, but just to see how everyone takes everything. It's going to be very sad.
Any other thoughts before we close up this episode, Paige?
The only other thing I could say, I'm still excited to see more and more of the infected. Because I know they don't use CGI. For a special effects team is doing phenomenal. I like every stage of them. I want to see more of them.
I agree. The prosthetic and makeup department is doing some amazing stuff. And I'm very excited to see, like you said, the infected. I feel like they've definitely built upon what they established and figured out in season 1. And we've also been seeing how the infected have evolved a bit here as well. We have the whole hive mind hibernation thing going on. We got the stalker as well. So a lot to look forward to, even in just the infected moving forward in the show, for sure.
Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Thank you so much, Paige, for your time. This has been absolute blast breaking down this brutally emotional episode that hit a home run in regards to what I was hoping for in live action.
I appreciate it, and I'm just going to say enjoyed a very well scripted, well shot episode.
Yes, I would totally agree. Thank you again so much. I'm very much looking forward to the rest of season 2 and next Sunday seeing episode 3. In the meantime, I'm sure I'll be texting you about little fan clips and everything that I find along the way. And
yeah, I love it. I love seeing it.
Awesome. And thank you for everybody joining us for this episode of the Cinema Club. We will catch you next week. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Cinema Club. If you would be interested in coming on the show in the future, please email us at thecinemaclubtcc@gmail.com. Also, if you have not yet already done so, I would encourage you to join the Cinema Club Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/thecinemaclubtcc, where we share what television series or films will be featured in upcoming episodes on the show. I'm sure you're listening to this episode on your preferred streaming platform, but I wanted to make you aware that you do have options. The Cinema Club is available on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and now YouTube as well at the Cinema Club Podcast. Please also consider giving the show a review on iTunes, as it does really help the show. And finally, we are completely supported by listeners like you. If you love the show, please consider visiting our website and clicking the Support This Podcast button. You can check that out at podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/the Cinema Club. Your contribution of even 99 cents a month goes directly to maintaining and growing the Cinema Club podcast. Thank you so much to those of you who already financially do support the Cinema Club, and we will catch you on the next one.